And the recording of this session will be sent to everyone who attended and everyone who registered at the end. And you can ask questions throughout the session, and Matt, who will be presenting from Spanning, will answer those questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Matt and switch him to presenter.
Thanks, Dylan. All right. Okay, we're going to get started. As Dylan mentioned, we're going to talk about data protection today and 3 steps to creating a rock-solid protection plan for your Google Apps data. Just a little bit about Spanning and me before we get started. Spanning Cloud Apps, we provide enterprise-grade backup and recovery for SaaS applications to ensure that data in your cloud applications is always available. You would never suffer some business loss or business productivity loss due to interruption of data availability. Myself, I'm Director of Products here at Spanning, so I'm responsible for overall direction and strategy for our suite of products. So in today's webinar, I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to start off talking about what is SaaS data protection, and what are you responsible for versus Google. Then we'll go through the 3 steps to building a plan or starting to build awareness around the risks that are in the system. The first one is understand the common ways to lose data. Second, learn how to quickly restore data accurately for some critical use cases. And the third one is evaluate the differences between EDiscovery and backup and recovery. So I wanted to start off and just talk about what is data protection. That is definitely an overused word. I think there can be some confusion when you're speaking with individuals in organizations in the IT department or amongst your application team when it comes to application security and application availability. Also, when you talk to vendors, it's difficult to understand exactly who does what related to data protection. So I wanted to cover just what is data protection and look at a few definitions that are out there and then lead down the path to the part that Spanning covers. So dictionary.com says technology to protect against data loss due to computer failure, user error, unlawful access, and deliberate damage. So in that case, right, you're protecting against changes to data to make it unavailable or corrupt from a variety of different means. BusinessDictionary.com says the use of techniques such as file locking, record locking, database shadowing, disk mirroring to ensure the availability and integrity of the data. That's much more of an infrastructure backup and recovery definition of data protection. And then what is, which is the TechTarget site, says data protection is the process of safeguarding important information from corruption and or loss. So, data protection actually, when you talk about it, encompasses a few different areas that you need to be aware of and need to be considering as you move to Google Apps and start securing the data that you have in that environment. And I see it really as 3 areas that you need to cover. I actually have a blog post coming out on the EMC blog in a few weeks on this. There's really 3 pillars for data protection. The first is identity management, really making sure that you're properly managing accounts and access to ensure that only authorized individuals can view and control your data. This is the processes of onboarding, offboarding employees and contractors into your organization, handling transfers of information and job transfers appropriately. Again, really just controlling who needs to have access to the data. So this is really managing the people. Another one of the areas is data loss prevention or information rights management. That's really more controls that are related to the data itself. Of course, it will reference the individuals and who has access, but this is really building a policy-based enforcement model around the activity that can be performed on the data, even when individuals have proper rights to that data, right? So controls like sharing, printing, downloading. So, a good example of this in Google Drive is, if you have a folder in Google Drive that's used by the executive team, right, you may want to put controls around that to say that it can't be shared externally to other organizations. You can also put in controls like it can't be downloaded directly to a laptop or printed from a laptop. So those kind of controls you need to have consideration for as you roll out your Drive deployment and understand what critical information needs to be controlled in that manner. The last one is backup and recovery. the process of copying or archiving data for the purpose of being able to restore them in the case of data loss. Data protection related to backup and recovery is important because of all the reasons that we saw in the previous slide. Things like user error, malicious behavior, accidents can happen a lot. And the data that's critical, you need to be able to restore that to a operational state to have your business continue with their work. All right, starting with step one. From here forward, we'll focus on that area of backup and recovery related to data protection. So I'm going to first cover some common ways that you can lose data. All right. Okay. So the reasons for data loss historically, right? So on-premise applications or SaaS applications, infrastructure as a service, the primary reasons historically for data loss are the things you see on the screen. Human error, programmatic errors, malicious insiders, external hackers, viruses, malware. Those are all the ways data can get lost, corrupt, moved, unavailable to the business related to human behavior. On the right, we see hardware failure, software failure, natural disaster, power outage, all these infrastructure reasons for data loss. And historically, the things on the right are responsible for probably more data loss than the human behavior aspects. But when you move information and data into a Google Apps environment or any other SaaS application, the vendor, Google, is responsible for making sure that their application is always available, always running. So they cover all the things on the right. They have redundant servers around the world, the data centers. They have a goal for what they say is an RTO of 0, which is restore time objective, because they do so much replication to ensure the data is always available. Their goal is to have 0 downtime for the entire platform and your data that resides in it. What they don't have SLAs around and don't have strong controls for is all the things on the left, right? It's your data when you put it into Google Apps. You're still responsible for it. You're still responsible for making sure it's available to the business. You need to produce it in legal cases sometimes as well. And fundamentally, Google will do with your data what you tell them to do. So if you have somebody who makes a mistake, or if somebody writes a Google script that starts destroying data or changing data in unwanted ways, Google, the platform, will take those actions and carry them out just like you told them to do. And they actually have SLAs around that. It's your data. So if you have a malicious insider who starts destroying data before they leave, again, those actions will be carried out. So one of the things that I want to talk about now is really what is a data loss event. Historically, when you talk about data loss for on-premises applications, it was always deleted. The data's gone forever. It's been fully deleted. We had a hard drive failure, something catastrophic, and sort of an infrastructure notion to a data loss event. And when you're in the SaaS application, like Google Apps environment, those things just don't occur that often, right? And so we still see lots of our customers around the world, have points in time where they've lost data and they cannot have it, and it's where it's not available to the business. And so this is my definition of data loss event here, which is any action that leads to data being inaccessible and unrecoverable to its original condition for use by the authorized individuals or systems. So it's data that can't be found, right? You have somebody, whether it's an employee or partner, that's looking for data. They need to do their work related, to your organization, and they can't find it. They reach out to you as the admin or to the IT organization and say, I can't find this data. I need it to do my job. And so, obviously one of those areas is deleted, right? If data is permanently deleted, then it is gone forever. So in Gmail, if you put something into the trash and then empty your trash bin, it's gone forever, right? If you delete a user's account after 5 days, all of their data is gone forever. And there's ways in Google that you can configure some retention, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I'll show you some of that as well. But fundamentally, of course, full loss of data could be an issue. Another one is versioning, right? Versioning of data is also a way to lose data, right? If you're working on a document and you have, you've come to the 10th revision, and then all of a sudden, that revision or a few more seem to be gone and disappeared. So you've lost work that you were relying on. And that in a collaborative environment like Google Drive, that can happen by your actions or someone else's actions, right? Anyone who has access to that data could be affecting it. And again, Google has some capabilities here to store some versions of information. But one of the things that I'll illustrate a little bit later with a demonstration is the metadata changes as well, right? So the contents of documents, the data itself can change, but the metadata around it can change. And that's one of the areas where we see a lot of data in Google Drive be unavailable to the business or to the partners that your organization works with. So if sharing gets changed, if labels or stars or description, any of the metadata gets changed, that does have an impact on individuals' ability to use that information. So some of the examples that we see time and time again amongst our customers is, Gmail trash is emptied or just ages out, right? So after a certain amount of time, information in the trash bin in Gmail will age out and be gone, or if the trash is emptied. We've done a number of restores for organizations related to that. Folder structure of a shared folder changes, causing files to be orphaned and sharing settings to be stripped. This one I will demonstrate just a little bit. It's a little bit complex. I actually covered it, a similar use case in the GCon webinar in the springtime. I encourage you to go watch that one as well. And this is really related to having a collaborative environment in Google Drive where different individuals, either within an organization or across organizations, own folders and files in a combined file hierarchy, if that makes sense. And so I'll show how this can affect organizations, and we've done a lot of our key restores are related to this piece as well, showing that point-in-time recovery and restore is vitally important. Other examples are malware, like CryptoLocker, which infects data on someone's laptop, encrypts file contents, and holds that information for ransom. Of course, those changes to those files get pushed up to Google Drive and can be pushed up there, and then synchronized to other places as well. We see things like just straight integration issues. Contracts are synced with the new phone, and data gets destroyed and overwritten or merged inappropriately. Right. And then anyone trying to perform malicious behavior can always do a lot of damage inside your environment. So whether that's a hacker that gets access and starts deleting data, or just someone malicious insider, or even accidental insider that causes data loss. We've had a few customers that, or quite a few actually, that when individuals are leaving an organization, right, somebody resigns from a company, and then on their offboarding process themselves, they'll go start deleting emails and deleting Drive files, just kind of cleaning up their environment before they end their time with the organization, and that can have impact on the business, of course. Okay, so step 2 in the process is know how to quickly restore data back to accounts. This is where I'll get into some of the demonstration. In this scenario, I'll demonstrate how a user can have a nested folder structure. And when the top level folder gets deleted, whoever that was shared with, shared with other teams, especially if the nested content was created by another user or owned by another user, it does create instances where it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to recover back to the state that it was. And this is really important in areas where in your organization you have shared content. I know expanding, we use Google Drive as well, of course, and each of the there's a person in each of the department teams that has a folder. I have a folder called product team, and it has a lot of critical data inside of it. The entire organization has access to it to read. People have created subfolders and subfolders underneath it and created lots of content in there. And fundamentally, Google Drive, the way that it reacts to deletions is based off of who owns the content. And I'll show this. So if somebody who owns the top level folder deletes it or actually moves it to the trash, interesting things happen. So I'll show you how that behaves in Google Drive. And I'll also show the administrative restore. So one of the things that Google added last year, which is valuable to organizations, is the ability to restore data that has been fully deleted. And so I'll walk us through that as well and show you its capabilities and some of its limitations as well. And then we'll show spending backup for Google Apps and show how we would restore that data. Okay. Over here. Okay. So we'll go here. So I'm logged in as Joe here into Google Drive. I have a folder called GCon Live, GCon 2015 Live. Inside of it, I am the owner of that. Inside of that, I have a graphics folder. In this example, let's say Adam is on our design team, and he's responsible for creating the graphics for the presentations I'm doing today. And so he's the owner of this folder. He's created it underneath mine. I have a content folder. I have a presentation here. And in each of these, I just dropped in one file, a couple files here. Okay. All right. So what happens is, if once the presentation, today's over, I might just say, I don't really need this information anymore. The webinar is complete, so I'll go ahead and delete that, right? So if I say remove, it's now gone. It's in the trash. It says removed one folder. One removed folder is still accessible by collaborators, right? So it's in the trash, but people still have access to it. I'm going to pause real quick here. That's an interesting point. We have a lot of customers that fairly aggressively empty their trash because of this. Because end users, when they put things in the trash, a lot of times their belief is that no one has access anymore, right? But some people, there is some level of access that's still available to collaborators. Okay. All right. So what happens when this gets deleted forever? So actually, before I do that, I'm going to hop over and show you what it looks like for Adam. All right. So in my drive, it's gone. Previously in Adam's view, see here, my drive, shared with me. Previously, it would have the same exact folder because he was shared at the top level, GCon 2015 Live. And so he did own a folder underneath there, which is that graphics live. You can't see it anywhere into his drive, right? It's my drive here, graphics live there. I think it's a different one. All right, we can search for information here. So, test file. So things are available, right? There's certain pieces of information that he can see, but they're fairly orphaned, right? And so it's difficult to navigate to those. Let me go ahead and fully delete that. Actually, I think you can still see that because of it still being in the trash. Okay, so I emptied my trash. I was the owner of the top level folder, and so that's gone forever. So now if we look at Adam's purview here, go to my drive. All right, so we still have some data there. Joe is an item. Okay. See if that data is there. So it is there. So what happens is it returns the data that Adam owned to Adam's folder. So instead of it being in that top level 2015 folder, now in a different folder, and it drops it at the root level. Okay. And so that may be confusing to him. He didn't know where it came from or where it used to be, its parent was. So that's one of the pieces where we see customers being confused about where data is and how it's behaving. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to jump over. We deleted that permanently. Again, there's functionality inside of Google to be able to recover some data. So let's go ahead and jump over and do that. So as an administrator, you can go into users. Go in, and I went ahead and pull up Joe here. Of course, this is mine. Oops. Again. One of the options you have now here is to restore data. So you can restore data, and you say I want to restore drive data from do today to today. Let's see, it's let's do 11:15 there. So I'll drive data between 11:15 and midnight tonight. Restore data. So what we'll see is the data is being restored. The data will appear in the owner's drive in the same location as before deleting. So let's go over here to his drive. We can see that it's back, but it is not shared, right? So one of the ability to restore data, administrative restore like that, is obviously absolutely valuable to protect against the fully deleted data loss use case. But in this case, it restored it back, and we knew what we were looking for. If you said restore all data for the last 3 days, it's going to put it back, but not really tell you everything it put back. It's not a really clean report of what it actually did. And then when it does put it back, it puts it back without the sharing settings. So while the data is not fully deleted, it's also not available to all the people in the organization or outside of the organization that originally had access to it. It's not a really great record and way to understand how to recreate that same level of sharing and control that you had in the first place. So malicious behavior or mistakes can lead to data being misplaced, unavailable to the people that you have access to it, and putting it back in such a way that it's to its original condition can be very difficult. Okay. All right, some other common restore use scenarios that we see is restoring of emails and attachments that were fully deleted from Gmail. We do that a lot for our customers. Point-in-time drive restore, when the organization needs to recover a data set, like multiple drive folders. In the case of, we just looked at the ability to restore data, administrative restore. You can't really navigate through and understand what you want to restore. It goes back with the sharing settings removed. And it's not really a point in time, right? We've had customers who says, that the marketing folder and all of the projects they had related underneath that folder got moved or destroyed or changed in such a way that we don't know how to get it back the way that it needs to get back. And that can change when sharing settings change, or data gets moved, or just someone drags a folder into a different folder. Anyone who has access can move those things around. And so, if things were fully deleted, you could use some of the administrative restore that we just showed to get data back. It would try to put it back where it came from. Hopefully, it would be fine. Sharing settings wouldn't be there the way you wanted it to. If people move things around, move folders in and out, sometimes you can potentially go through some of the activity log and try to understand what happened. But generally, getting things back to the way that they were a day ago or 2 days ago is very difficult. And so that's where we come in and help. I'll show that in just a second. And the last one is restore Google for Work data from one account to another to support onboarding and offboarding for individuals. This is another benefit of our product. It really gives the administrator this view over all the accounts and all the data that we have backed up into the environment. Some of the things that I just showed and demonstrated were being done as the end user, right? End users can go in and see things and access their own recycling bin and change things. But the administrators have a great purview over all the data generally. So what we see amongst our customers is that they're using our tool to do what we call cross-user restore. So if you have somebody who leaves the organization, you've offboarded them, at the point when you remove or disable their Google account, you can choose to move all the data to a new user if you want to. But we see that not being the correct steps in all cases. Sometimes you don't know who you want all the data to be owned by, or you don't want to move it over and change that actual ownership because that has ramifications on security. And so they'll leave it in spanning backup until they need it. And when the time comes, they need the information, a new person gets hired, or maybe the role that the original person was playing gets split into two roles, or two different people. You can come into our product, selectively choose folders, particular contacts, calendars, whatever you have in Google Apps environment, and restore that to a different individual. So it gives you that really granular ability to move data to the right individual who needs it. Okay. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is spinning backup for Google Apps. I'm logged in as Joe, who is an administrator. Here. If I want to restore data, I can just click here. Go to Google Drive. So we do cover all 5 services. We've built the user interface to be very intuitive, both for administrators and end users. End users can also log in and see only their data and recover it themselves. In this case, it's a drive restore. And I can go to any point in time in the past where we've done an automated daily backup or an on-demand backup of all the data in the account. Okay. So I'll go back to yesterday. We've got 147 backup. I did a couple of other ones that were manual backups here. 757. All right, we'll go back here. All right. And so I can take the GCon Live folder that I deleted as we started this use case, and I can see what's in it. Right, here's the contents. Here's the graphics, the folder that was owned by Adam. If I click on some of these, let's see here, graphics. I can also pull up and see previous versions of this folder. I can see who the owner is. In this case, Adam is the owner of this. It's shared with Joe, so all that information is available. These are the modified versions of that folder itself. Right. Same thing with files. I can look at files themselves and see the information about it, as well as drill into previous versions. I can also see every backup that it was included in as well, if I want to do that. And so from here, I can restore that directly back into Google Drive. I can export it, download it as well. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this entire folder, the way that it was, last night. Let's go to the 29th here. Oops. And we're going to put it back. So restore. And this is where the cross-user restore functionality comes into play. So this is, do you want to put it back into Joe's account, which is the original owner, or do you want to move it into someone else's account? In this case, I'm going to put it back into Joe's, right back where it was, and I'm going to restore the sharing settings. So we'll get that folder back with all of its contents, its nested folders, all the files associated with it. The top level folder will be owned by Joe, but shared with Adam. That graphics folder underneath will be owned by Adam and shared with Joe. Go ahead and do that. I'll kick off that restore process. And we'll go back to Drive, and we should see those things happening. So our product does what we call non-destructive restore. So we'll actually put that data back into Google Drive, but we'll put it into a folder or label called restored from September 3rd, so it's easily identifiable, and it doesn't override existing data that's there. Okay. So if I go in there, see there's the folder. It's back. Inside of there, we've got the 3 folders. Wow. Okay. So back just like the way it was. All right. So step 3, one of the things that we speak with customers a lot about is the differences between EDiscovery and backup and recovery. And it's an important piece of information to use as you assess your organizational and legal risks associated with each of these different functions, right? EDiscovery is typically focused on the legal aspects of retaining data for a certain defined period of time in case they need to be used in civil or criminal litigation, privacy requests, those kinds of things. And backup and recovery is fundamentally about operational efficiency and making sure that your business can continue to run. And we have just about every one of our mid to large size customers has both products, right? They have backup and recovery to serve the needs of daily data loss scenarios and protected information, get those point-in-time snapshots that can roll back to a certain place. And they also have EDiscovery, used by the legal team for its primary purpose. It really is 2 solutions with 2 problems, 2 different users. So backup, so spanning backup provides automated daily backup of all the data and metadata across all 5 services. Really being able to put that information back from a certain point in time exactly like it came out. We can do direct restore by administrators or end users. So we restore data back into Google directly. Administrators can do that. End users can do that for their own data. We have the cross-user restore functionality I talked about, which is putting data from one account into another. And then we do cover the whole suite. So Google Vault is a great tool for EDiscovery. It does real-time holds of emails and on-the-record chat. I think right now there's a partner conference going on where they're talking about some additional functionality there related to Google Drive. I'll talk about that in just a second. It does export only, right? It doesn't directly restore data back into the Google environment. Again, it's a legal tool, and your legal team, when they have a request for information, they want to download it, to give it to the legal team. The legal team has practice management tools that know how to take that data and search through it in the way that it needs to get searched through. Right? So fundamentally, the EDiscovery tool didn't need a direct restore function because that's not how the data is typically used. It does provide domain-wide search of live content, not previous versions of anything. So there is some capabilities today in Google Vault related to Drive contents, but it's really just domain-wide search. It gives an administrator or someone on the legal team the ability to search across all of the content that's there. But once that content changes, if there's a new revision of a document and the internal contents change, that search won't go back through those versions over time. And fundamentally, it's structured for lawyers. I'll show you the UI in just a minute. It's structured around matters and searches and queries. Okay. So I'll do a quick demonstration. I'm going to delete a project folder in an email that Joe has here, and then into the recycling bin, which again can happen automatically after 30 days, or users can initiate that whenever they want. So the scenario is such that the user deleted it, it was an accident, they need that information back. It was critical to their work. But I'm also going to talk about how, if that was an issue for the legal team, what if they needed it back? So, let's jump over and look at that. Okay. So here's email for Joe. As you can see, the inbox here, we have a folder called GCon Live. I've got 5 different emails in here. And a lot of times, we've got customers that primarily will use clients. So I'm going to actually put the same information in the Mac mail. Right? So this is just a mail client. I've got the same information here. So here's the GCon Live folder. And if I and delete this, it says you're going to delete this, delete, okay. It moves that folder. So now the data there is gone. All right, so we'll go back over to Gmail. Oh, it's already refreshed. You can see that folder is gone now. It's probably, in this case, it's not in the trash at this point. It's probably in the trash on my local machine, so it's gone. And again, of course, this can age out after 30 days as well. And so what we hear from customers, occasionally is as they're assessing their potential risks associated with data loss and what they have in place today. As somebody has Google Vault, that one of the things that we hear is they can use Vault to find this information if it was lost. And so in Vault, you have the ability to create searches across a variety of aspects of email. So in this case, I've got a search. I'm going to search Joe's account for mail, and I want to see all of the data that was that had the label GCon 2105. I mistyped that, but I mistyped it everywhere, so it should work. And if I hit search, we have nothing that comes back. And the reason for that is that when we removed it, when we pushed it to the trash, it basically deleted that folder and removed the labels, and so it's gone. So even if the messages are still there, inside of Vault, because when things get deleted from Gmail, Vault's job is to make sure that it doesn't get permanently deleted. It always has a record in Vault because it's keeping it around for legal reasons. But the aspects of that mail, even though it's kept around forever, can still change. So the fact that the label changed makes it more difficult to find those 5 emails. How do I find those 5 emails now? So just to show you what that would look like here, I'll do it correct this time. Do that. So I have a new folder there. I'll just dump some additional. Oops. Grab a few of these. Put them over there. Okay. So now we have 4 in here. And so you'll be able to see that in Vault, it does a great job of being able to search for things that your legal team might need. So again, I do the same search. I created a new folder. I created it with the right one. And we're going to search. Maybe not quite there yet. Sometimes it takes a few seconds to index that. Oh, and I'd probably be better if I got the query correct as well. Okay, here we go. And there. So point being is that if somebody moves things to the trash or if it gets deleted, sometimes it's not about just the data. It's also about the metadata and the use cases related to that. And in this use case, if somebody lost and deleted a key project folder for them to keep their business running, it wouldn't be in here in a manner that would make it very easy to get back those exact emails. You'd have to know what those emails were and figure out some other aspect to search on them from. Even from here, that again, you can't restore. You can export, which will give you a file to download. Then you have to work with that individual to identify the right way to get it back into Gmail. In Gmail, Google recommends using a client for that, like Thunderbird. So many steps to get back to being productive. Okay, so that concludes the 3 steps. Again, I think that as you look at your risk assessment for data that you have in the cloud, absolutely make sure that you're focused on identity management, ensuring the right people have the right access to the right data. For the data that they do have access to, consider information rights management or data loss prevention to say what they can do with that data. They have rights to use it, edit it, but they can't download it. They can't share it externally. So look at that aspect. And then look at backup and recovery. Make sure that all those use cases related to data loss that you were covering when you had information on premises are still being covered. Right? Google does a great job of infrastructure availability and backup. They won't lose your data, but you still can. And the ways to get it back can be very confusing and laborious, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Right? So having that snapshot, point-in-time snapshot, to be able to roll back to a particular set of data known to the business, working for the business, and get it put back accurately is vital. Just a few more resources if you want to learn more. Again, I did a GCon webinar back in springtime as well that has some more demonstration use cases a little bit different than these. Take a look at that. We do have an ebook available, The Definitive Guide for Backup for Google Apps for Work. Click there. And then Spanning Backup does provide a 14-day free trial. So go out to the Google Apps Marketplace and give us a shot. And that's it.
All right, so let's dive into some of the questions.
Dylan.
Yeah, that was great. We have a lot of questions here and not a lot of time, so we'll see how many we can get to. Could you elaborate on the amount of time, like how far back Spanning can restore from versus what just Google Drive can do on its own?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So Spanning Backup is a subscription-based service, so it's cloud-to-cloud backup. So the data is held in our service. We have unlimited storage as part of that subscription license and unlimited version. So if you start a trial, the first initial backup where we get your data, that's as far back as you can go. The administrative restore that I showed, where you go to the user in the admin console and you say restore data, I believe that's 25 days worth of data that you can go back as far as you can go.
Okay, and where are your backups stored? Someone was wondering.
Sure, yeah, all of our services run in Amazon. So we use a number of their services, but the data ends up residing in Amazon S3 storage.
Someone was wondering if you guys have, and it's sort of a pricing question, but if there's any special deals for educational institutions.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got automatic 25% discount for education and nonprofit. We also have a few programs related to education in particular, where there may be opportunities to cover faculty and staff and get a little bit more discount for the students if you want to cover them. So definitely reach out to us and we'll talk to you about that.
Okay. And someone was wondering, so the backup storage capacities, they're all administratively determined, or is there some way that end users can control those for themselves?
In our case, it's unlimited storage, and so no need to sort of control the quotas or capacity there. End users have access to log in and see all that data that they've produced as well over time. And given that Google for Work is now basically unlimited storage as well, the idea of quotas, I think, is going away to a certain extent.
How many versions of a certain file or folder will Spanning keep?
We do automated daily backup, right? So we'll keep as many versions as we see. So if a file changes every day for a year, we'll have 365 copies for you.
And for when you're obtaining Spanning licenses, would you get one? It'd be a domain-wide thing, or can you get it for just important users who need their data backed up?
Yeah, absolutely. For important users, you get to choose. If you have an organization of 1,000 employees and you want to just cover 100, you can just buy 100 licenses and choose which individuals will have the backup service.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In the restoration of data, this is sort of similar to the last question. Can it be done for groups, or does it have to be done individually?
It's individual, so it's at the account level. There's, I guess there'll be a little quick clarification there. So the restore process today is per account. So you'd have to find the individual, find the data that they have in their backup, and restore it back. We do occasionally get questions about group-owned content. Google has this notion of groups, of course, and they have shared inbox. That data today is not available for us to back up or anyone else, group-owned email. So those things we're working with Google for the future. I think they're working on a bit more focused on group-owned content, and we're in lockstep with them to make sure that when group-owned content is more available than it is today, that we'll be able to restore that.
Okay, and this is probably the last question we have time for, but does Spanning have the ability to merge two users?
We don't have a direct merge function. The cross-user, restore would give you the ability to have the data, moved into the proper account. So you could go into the individual who is going to be the primary, or actually the one that's not going to be the primary. Go into Drive to a certain point in time, whether it's the latest backup or whatever, and just say select all, and then restore that data into the other account. You'd have to do that for each of the 5 services. It'd be 5 steps there in that process. But yeah, no direct merge function, but the data could get moved for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just to everyone else who's tuning in, we do have our next session is in a little over an hour. It'll be a deep dive into Google Classroom, so make sure to tune in for that. Big thank you to everyone who attended, and especially big thank you to Matt for presenting. This was very interesting and I think useful to everyone who tuned in.
Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And I'll be sending out recordings to everyone as well later today. Have a great day.
You too.